You know, Martavius, if you would just lay on your desk like a Roman emperor, then you could sort of be sideways and it would look okay.
slide. So I'm not going to talk about those. For our grants and subsidies, what that includes is a couple of different programs. Primarily, the bulk of it is our down payment assistance program. It's for public services, police and fire, citizens of the city of Memphis. And then there's, of course, opportunity for teachers and city employees. We also have some community, what we call public service, general community development grants through our SCIF process. We do that process. That's just our acronym for how we deploy our funding. And then we do provide some funding for our Continuum of Care Partner Community Alliance for the Homeless through that. And so those are what those grants and subsidies are for. And then I'm going to go to program spending. And so here is where essentially you once again kind of see what we're requesting. So it's FY23, we're requesting $4.8 million, 2.1 in administration, about $900,000 in housing, $356,000 in economic development, and $1.4 million in community services, community initiatives, excuse me. So for personnel, if you look at it overall, actually, if you look at our expenditures overall, we've got a slight decrease in some of these funding requests here are provided by the administration. And so that's where insurance is moving out of our division into either other divisions or specifically into risk management. And so that is where you see that net change. And then let's see. I wanted to discuss on here our revenues for FY23. We just have proposed revenues, one, $100,000 in our charges for services, and really that is our docking fees. If I can go to the next slide, I can talk a little bit more about revenues. So generally, over the past, HCD has been receiving docking fees on behalf of Memphis River Parks Partnership for American Queen. The contract is expiring this year, and so we only anticipate having a couple of closeout expenses for those revenues, and that is purely a pass-through. We're not receiving any actual funding for that, and so we've decreased that amount by $150,000, and what you saw on the previous slide was the request for $100,000. The other decrease there are just Fannie Mae service fees. We're decreasing that because it's no longer part of our budget. And then our division information, so looking at personnel, we have in our 2023 complement 63 employees. We've got about
It's
9.
like
Meeting
the
health
slides
system.
are not staying up
Press
with what you're talking about.
5.
Are you talking about comparative spending still and personnel there?
You've been muted. To
We're
unmute
looking at
yourself,
comparative
press
spending right now.
*6.
Oh, it does say slide. Huh.
You are no longer muted.
I don't know. We're not seeing what you're trying to talk about.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Give me a second, because now I see.
Control the slides
Tristan, if
yourself.
someone is there, somebody who can assist, because I'm progressing the slides, but it is saying it's at slide 8 now.
So you, Jeff.
Oh, I think. Let me see. Hold on. Let me see if I can get y'all there.
Jeff and everyone listening, you can control the slides yourself.
Okay. Are you seeing expenditures now?
No, we're still seeing fiscal year discussion of year-over-year changes in expenditures.
Okay, that's where I am now. That's where I am. I had to basically update what y'all were seeing. Okay, apologies for that. And I'm happy.
What number slide?
Slide 8 is what you should be seeing. Are we on the same page?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Chase. I mean, we can do it. If you look down at the bottom where it says slide and live, if you click there, we can move our own too, okay? So maybe just tell us which slide you want, and we'll try to get there if you can't get there. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good, and I saw that, so I apologize for that. So slide 8 is FY discussion, year-over-year changes in expenditures. And this slide is essentially where I was just sharing You do see a decrease, a net decrease of about $25,000. That's where some insurance payments that we normally hold, or I'm sorry, not insurance payments, some funding that we normally hold for insurance in the event of any kind of action or premium that we have to take. We are now moving those funds at the administration's request over to risk management, and so that's the impact on our budget. All right. And then let's see if, goodness.
You know, Ms. Cash, I tell you what, I've just taken over advancing the slides, so let me see if I can help you along with this.
I so appreciate it because I'm not doing good on that. Okay, so if we can go to slide, you can go to the next slide, Councilman.
This one here?
So you're on revenue discussion, and you can move to the next slide. Okay. Yeah, now it's saying sync to presenter. I'll tell you what, if y'all give me a minute, I can pull this up on my own and probably just try to control it because it's now stuck on slide 9.
Is everybody else seeing slide 9?
I'm on slide 10 because I moved myself. Okay. I think if you just tell us the number you want, we can get to the slide.
Okay.
Right, you can see the one you need to see.
That works because I have it in front of me. Thank you, I appreciate it. So slide 10 is what I'm on, which is the revenue bridge. And this is where we talked about under charges for service. The only charge we've got for FY23 is $100,000 for docking fees. That is where HCD is receiving the docking fees for the River Parks Partnership as a pass-through. That contract is expiring this year, and so we're only budgeting, we're only anticipating $100,000 in revenue. But once again, that's not revenue we keep; that's revenue we just pass through. On slide 11. Slide 11, we have where we're decreasing the total amount we generally request for the docking fee, and then we're decreasing the amount of Fannie Mae fees that we receive. Slide 12 on my end is division detail information. It's just a cover slide, so I'm going to go to the next slide, which is slide 13. And it is personnel information. It is also a cover slide. And so I'm on slide 14, which is the division authorized complement. And I think this is where we initially, it was brought to my attention that we were off track, so we're back where we were. So on this one, HCD has 63 employees in their complement and our complement. We've got about 9 vacant positions. Of those positions, 4 of them are in the process of being filled. I think we've got a few actually posted. Actually, we've got 4 posted right now. So 4 have been filled. 4 are currently posted. And then at the top of this page, you can see the breakdown. We've got 37 in administration. Once again, administration includes what people typically consider as back office, but it also includes our finance, our compliance department, our planning department. And then we've got our 3 other areas, housing with 9 individuals, economic development with 5, and then community initiatives with 14 in fiscal year 23. And so then I'm going to go to slide 15, materials and supplies, which is the cover slide. So I'm just going to move over to slide 16. So here we have our materials and supplies. The largest amount, which is $126,000, I'm going to cover on the next slide. Everything else are what I consider typical materials. We've got computer expenses, needs for documents, any external supplies, our phone systems, training and education, travel, and other items. And that total amount is $430,000 and $560. So now I'm going to go to slide 17. which is the detail of our that first line on materials and supplies, and that's going to be our miscellaneous charges. These are really our professional services accounts. We've got our professional services contracts. We do the NACHA audit, which is $16,000. We work with corporate facts, and they were recommended to help. Actually, they've been working with our department and finance on helping us to clean up some of our historic grants and get those funds and that funding source organized. We work with All World contract on project management for some inspection activity for a lot of our rehab projects, and that's $10,000. And then we work with National Development Council. They provide technical assistance with underwriting any federal regulations. And so these are the professional services contracts that we've worked with for a number of years and hope to continue in fiscal year 23. Slide 18 is not applicable, and then slide 19 is my last slide, which is our minority and women-owned business spending. We've spent certified 39.62% in minority and women-owned business spending. Non-certified, we've spent about 61.49% out of a total of $7 million in funding. And with that, that is my presentation. I apologize for the technical errors. I'm out of practice with the virtual. But with that, I turn it over, Chair, to respond to any questions that you all may have.
Colleagues, if you could pull up the chat and indicate if you have a question. I don't see anybody in here yet, so until somebody puts themselves in the queue, would you please indicate if you have a question for Director?
I have a question.
Yes, Councilman.
On slide 14, it says we got 5 vacant positions, 9 total vacant positions. And then the status of positions, we have 4 and 4. So how does 4 and 4 equal 9?
So it doesn't. So we have 1 vacant position that has not been posted yet. But we've got 4 that's posted and 4 that's filled. So we're waiting to really just trying to get through the day-to-day work of things, but we just have 1 position that we actually need to post.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. My question comes under major M&S expenditures. You said lawsuits, you have $25,000. What is that? What type of lawsuits do you incur that you need $25,000?
So that number is a budgeted number that was provided by Finance Administration Budget Office. It's a funding amount. So currently we don't have any lawsuits.
But it's in the event we may have a lawsuit to come up. But we've never budgeted for it. It's always been forwarded to us through the budget office.
Thank you. So, Councilwoman, thank you for your question. Just to clarify my response. So that is in the event that we do have a lawsuit, but that amount is provided by administration as sort of our placeholder funding available amount in the event that we have entered into a lawsuit or are entered into a lawsuit.
Would not administration handle that anyway?
It depends, but I think in that case, and I might defer to either Chief Ford or Chief McGowan, but in this case, this gives the division some funds in order to address that issue as it arises.
Okay, I've seen it before, and I just I need to ask the question because I've seen a small amount for a lawsuit. And I said, what is this going on? Why would not? I guess that's a question to Chief McGowan. Why would not legal handle all of these lawsuits? And why would they individually be pulled apart?
Thanks, Councilwoman. Maybe Chief Ford or Chief Sink can weigh in, but I will tell you that we have seen this go back and forth since 2016. We put it all in legal, then put some of the divisions that have gone back to legal. And I think every year we have a different question about a Well, why does legal have all these if some of it's divided up into, don't some divisions have legal costs? So I don't know that there's a great answer, except for the fact that it looks like Shirley has some answers here, but we have gone back and forth on this a number of times over the years. So Shirley?
Yes. Thank you, council members. Thank you for recognition, Chairman Jones. This is, as Chief McGowan said, it is something that we have every year. It seems to be like a different take on it, but every year legal provides to us an estimated amount by division so that there is some kind of sharing of expenses for the lawsuits. Oftentimes you'll see those not ever occur. Other times you'll see them occur and they need to be increased, unfortunately. But legal provides us a list every year that is allocated out to every division.
Okay. My only other question left is, do we have any carryover?
No, ma'am, there is no carryover of lawsuit money.
Okay, but I'm talking about for this whole division, housing and community development, Ms. Cash. And
No, Councilwoman, thank you, Councilwoman, we don't have any carryover.
okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Councilman Warren, you back in the queue?
No, sir, I just was trying to figure out how to raise my hand. That's why I put it back down.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Ms. Cash, I have a couple of questions in mind.
Okay.
Looking at the authorized complement, and I see 5 individuals in economic development. I wanted to have an idea of what role do these people that fall under the category of economic development play in your division?
Sure. So we actually have a grant that we manage, the Neighborhood Economic Development Opportunities Grant, in addition to some other activity. That department is made up of our development services, and so people know us for housing, they know us for down payment assistance, but we continuously work on different community development and economic development projects, and so that group of individuals are really supporting those functions. We're working on a project now in the North Memphis area around New Chicago to redevelop, and this is community development, so it can be community or economic, to redevelop a community park up there. We are working in the Fraser area to support a urban farm in the area with a nonprofit agency. There are a couple of other applications, but that's really a way for our division to clearly provide support to primarily non-housing, community, or economic development opportunities. It's available for businesses, it's available for nonprofit and for-profit, and so currently most of the pipeline are those community development projects, but we would love, Councilman, if you or others have ideas or have seen different types of activity that maybe fall more in line with the small business or economic development generator type projects.
Okay, so one thing that comes to mind is when we were talking about ARPA dollars last year, and I think there was an opportunity, or I think there was an allocation for the grocery stores.
Yes.
I think that may have been initiated by, spearheaded by Councilwoman East of the Commons. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to know, is there any type of coordination that is currently involving personnel under your shop to do that, as well as what may be
Swearingen is now joining.
So, Councilman, were you? I don't want to cut you off if you were still asking, but I can go ahead and respond if you.
You can go ahead and respond. Thank you.
Okay. So that's not complex, but it's a convoluted answer. Yes and no. We are actually with one of our other departments, which is our affordable housing department, been working with a partner who's working with Councilwoman Easter Thomas to kind of look at the feasibility of that grocery and location and those other things. So our division is a part of that work. We have not thought about figuring out how we can partner relative to economic development department. I think, a lot of times when we do our work, we go and do it. We don't look at it, I guess, from this bucket of things. We kind of look at who's the appropriate person, where's the partnership, where does it make sense. But yeah, I think there's absolutely an opportunity to connect Councilwoman and that project to the Economic Development Department and our NEDO, Neighborhood Economic Development Opportunities grant for some support. And I'm happy to reach out to her and make sure that connection happens.
Okay, thank you for that response. One other, I guess I would just say an issue that I would look at. I'm going back to the strategic priorities, being homeownership, development of healthy and affordable housing, coordination of community and economic development projects. However, when I look at this budget, I don't see it being much different than the previous year's budget. So, what are we doing different in this budget that we did last year? And if we are doing something different, why isn't that necessarily reflected in the amount that's being requested?
Sure. So I don't think we are. So let me step back and say, so FY22, these were our strategic priorities, and these are essentially the strategic priorities of the division. All of our work is going to fall under homeownership, healthy and affordable housing, and coordination of economic development opportunities. I think this year, what we are able to do, our NEDO program really kind of kicked off within the last year. We just have a handful of projects, and so we're at a point now where we can market that program a little bit better. We've got a few projects under our belt, and so hopefully next year when you see the budget request, you'll see a larger item, maybe not necessarily a larger request, but we can talk a little bit more to more projects that we have done in that area. In home ownership, it's not necessarily reflected in the budget, but we have our down payment assistance, and pretty recently we've worked with that office and HR and the police and fire department to really look at how we're supporting possibly new recruits for police and fire. And so we've changed our policy. I think our policy around down payment assistance was an employee who was either a policeman or a fireman or a policewoman or a firewoman would have to be employed for a year. And so now we're aligning that policy with HR's probationary period, which I can't tell you what it is. I cannot remember on the form, but we're making some policy changes to hopefully support those individuals, which I think aligns with. So it's not reflected in the budget. We're doing, I think, some different and innovative things with roughly the same amount of funds, and we're trying to be more efficient with those funds. So it's not necessarily shown in the numbers and the line items, quite frankly, that we're having to report on, but it is in the detail, in the program delivery and activity of what we're doing day to day.
Okay, and I appreciate that, but as we look at our current environment, we see that home ownership is becoming harder and harder with outside investors buying up a lot of the housing stock. It's just challenging for me not to see us have an increase ask or to do something different, knowing that we are in a different environment. Mm-hmm. And I don't see that with this budget.
Yes, sir. And the only other thing I would add, Councilman, and that you make a fair point, the only other piece that I would add is this is our general fund budget. I just ask that y'all keep in mind we do have a federal budget where a lot of our program spending and activity happens, and so we have not deployed any of these new programs, but we have talked to a couple of people about an appraisal gap program. We know that's a huge issue. We know the costs are escalating, and so just thinking about if the costs are escalating, how we can support agencies to create more affordable housing. But a lot of that is going to come through our federal budget, through our CDBG dollars, our home dollars, and so it's not necessarily reflected here. Primarily here you have our salaries and some of our community initiative spending, and like you pointed out, that economic development spending. But I would like to think a lot of the activity that you're talking about that's addressing the current need is coming through our federal funds.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to recognize Councilwoman Logan, but then I'm going to have a request for Chief Ford. Councilwoman Logan.
Chair, I took my hand down because I think she answered the question. I was wanting to know what was the, in slide 7, it was like $300,000. What was that for in particular? And I may have missed that explanation. It was for housing, but I was just wondering if there were any specific things that were tied to that amount.
Okay, give me 1 second, Councilwoman. 300,000.
I think it was 3, let's see.
Was that economic development? I see a $300,000 figure per head.
356.
Yes.
067, is that?
Yeah, that is.
Okay, so yeah, 356. Yes, thank you, Councilwoman, for that question. So that is in the economic development line, and I did allude to this. This is primarily for salaries, benefits, and that does include that docking fee payment that we talked about there. So primarily when we come to the city before city council with our budget, it is primarily for salaries and staffing. The bulk of our programmatic funding is in our federal grants.
What about the one above the housing? I think that's the one. The 9704.
So that would, yeah, that would include salaries, but that also includes our down payment assistance program.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Now you're back,
Thank
Sharon.
you, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Chief Ford, do we, and perhaps we can include it on here, we always go through CIP, we go through operating. Is there a section that we really talk about any divisions that may have federal funds that we talk about what our plan is for the year on how we will be spending those dollars?
Thank you, Councilman Jones, for that question. We do not have a specific program that we go through. What we do have is what's called our single audit, which is produced every year in conjunction, with our state audit, that lists every single federal program that is within the confines of the city of Memphis. And for instance, I was looking at FY21. Excuse me. We have under the Community Development Block Grant for HCD, that's approximately $4.2 million. The emergency shelter is $500,000. The home program is approximately $1.5 million. Housing opportunities for persons with AIDS is about $780,000. Weatherization program and a couple of others, that's another, it's about $1 million. So a little over $8 million in federal programming through HCD currently. And Director Cash, if there's anything I missed on that, I'm just kind of flipping through the audit. But there's overall, we have, excuse me, we have a little over $115 million in federal grant programs that are audited every year that runs, excuse me, that run through various divisions.
Okay, well, and I sort of, here it is, I'm in my, 6th or 7th budget season. And so one thing I love about this, that's challenging about it, you learn something new every day, don't necessarily know what you're planning on doing. But I think it would be informative for the council too. If we still talking about a significant amount of money, what the plan is to spend that and for having some type of review and explanation on how we do that. It's something I hadn't thought about, and just as we're having this discussion, I know if it's 8, I was going to ask if there's 8 million in HCD, what are the other divisions that may have those federal funds? And to my recollection, we've never had that discussion. So I would still, although it's not the general fund that we necessarily, it's not the same as the general fund that we have to approve. But I think that just as being stewards, I think it's still worthy of presentation for the council if we're talking about a significant amount of money, what the administration's plan is to spend that. So with that being the case, and I know it may still take something.
Chair, may I respond if I can? So we do have our federal budget, and it has to be approved by HUD. We have to go through a public process to determine how to program those funds. But we also bring that to council annually, and so you'll get that opportunity to see what those amounts are, see the programs, and we're happy to give a little bit of background about programs, kind of what we've done in the past and what we're looking to do new, since we know that is a request of yours. But you'll see that, I think, probably September-ish. It'll be a couple of months. July. Okay, there's 10 July. So it's still a couple months, but we will bring that back before you, so that you see how the bulk of our funding and our programs are being deployed.
Okay. Well, yeah. So if we look at it still from the standpoint, if we're talking about 150 million, and our general operating budget is 750 million, we still are talking about a sizable amount of money. That when we think about budget, this is the time that we hear, and I think it still would be instructive for the council to hear a complete overview, as opposed to division by division by division, and not having a holistic view of that. And this is just something, I plead the fifth on how I've allowed this to get past me, but I still think that it's informative for us to have that presented to the council, and we can ask questions to be a bit more informed on how some of those decisions are made. So I'm going to maybe perhaps after we go through the general fund, it may not be as intensive as the general fund, really just have an overview of how we plan to spend the federal funds as part of this year's budget cycle as well.
And also, Councilman, if I may add, the state does not require us to present or get this type of kind of comprehensive approval on our federal grants. Usually those come to you kind of in the sections, depending on the timing of the grant and who's presenting the grant. Like the Department of Homeland Security, there's a whole section there. The Department of Justice has a whole section of grants, and the Department of Transportation, and so there's a group of those that because sometimes you don't. Some of these are ongoing grants. Some of them are new grants that get requested for approval of acceptance of the grant that comes through council. But I also just kind of put in the chat the single audit, which is what it's called, is the annual report from FY21 is listed on pages 261 through 264.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. And it may not have to be an approval process, but there's still a lot that's going on that unless it's presented to the council, we have no idea of. And so it's just for us to be more informed. If somebody makes grant dollars that's available out there, it may be federal, but because we haven't had them formally presented to the council, I'm totally cool as what they are. And we're talking about $150 million. There's still $150 million that I would say that most of the council doesn't have any direction to, whether we have to approve it or not, just still being knowledgeable of what's out there so we can better inform the public. That would be the purpose of it.
Councilman Jones, thank you. And we can add that, especially as going forward as part of our overview, is just kind of in addition to all the other things that are going on, certain divisions have, and some of them are obviously sizable grants that are ongoing. Some of them are new, but we'd be glad to present the audit, our audit as part of our overview coming into our budget season, and then I can pull these quickly and have them sent to everyone electronically.
Okay, yeah, that would be most helpful because of this. Yeah, so that's we're still talking about $150 million, about 20% of our 20% of our. I know it's a separate budget, but it's still 20% of the dollars that we as a city have to spend. And just just from an informative standpoint, just to keep the council informed, that's why we make that request. Is there any other council member that would like to ask a question of Ms. Cash and the Division of Housing and Community Development? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion for this item. It has been moved by Ford, seconded by
Johnson.
At this time, all those that are in favor of this item, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? It is the opinion of the chair that the ayes have it on this item. Thank you, Ms. Cash.
Thank you, Council.
Next, colleagues, we have the Division of Information Technology.
Good evening. We are here. Can you hear us?
We can hear you just fine.
Great. So I have my presentation that I can share.
Okay.
How you doing?
Yes, please share it on your screen.
Okay, 1 second.
Okay.
And can you guys see it?
We can see it.
Okay. So thank you. Good evening. I'm Wendy Harris, the Information Technology Director for the City of Memphis. I reside at 4709 Forest Trail, Carterville, Tennessee. In the room with me, I have colleagues from the budget office that are going to assist with any questions that I cannot answer. So if you're ready, I will continue.
You may continue, Ms. Harris.
All right. So first, I want to thank you for your approval of my appointment to the Information Technology Division. Your confidence in me is valued, and I assure you that I'm committed to the work and to the staff and to this great city. So that is our organizational chart. It's simple. We have 2 levels: administration and operations. I'm sorry.
No, you can continue.
Okay. All right, administration and operations. Under administration, our major areas are administration and finance, and then we have 7 other service centers that fall under operations. So our strategic priorities addressed by this budget, we will provide purposeful solutions that upgrade our technical infrastructure, promote progressive implementations, and expand our innovative path to benefit all City of Memphis employees and citizens. So in FY23, we will provide the resources to continue to safeguard data and information, to build communication networks, to enhance our infrastructure, to develop and maintain computer systems, and to provide practical applications for troubleshooting technical devices. That's always been our continued focus, but this year we have a major focus, and that's to provide ISLs to reduce the number of contract positions and increase the information technology city position complement. And we will talk about that more later. So for our expenditure discussion, as you can see, there is a shift in the ask from last year's budget for personnel services and M&S. And this is largely due to the increase in ISLs that I will discuss later in the presentation. Program comparative spending, much like the other slide, this is the breakdown between admin and operations. You'll see, as I mentioned before, the shift, there's a 12% increase in the admin legal level, and that is due to positions that were added this year for FY22, and then the 41 requested ISLs. In this slide, our discussion of year-over-year changes and expenditures. This one, the net change includes potential raises that the city has approved, healthcare costs, and also added positions mid-year. Division detail information, our personnel information. So this slide shows that we do have 8 vacant positions, which 3 are filled now and 1 is posted. The highlight of this slide, as you'll see at the bottom, is reflects our 41 ISL positions. So that will increase our complement to 82 if approved. So this slide will discuss the ISL request that I have. So as Sheet 4 mentioned during the finance budget overview, and as I stated in my executive summary, The IT division has an opportunity to convert eligible contractor positions to city positions. And
$2.3 million?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. How many lawsuits did y'all get? Did y'all, I mean, I see when you got $100,000 on your lawsuit line again.
I will tell you that a few years ago, we did get a lawsuit of Councilwoman Johnson, but, and so we did have to fund that. But we also, again, this 100,000 was provided by administration.
Okay. Now, the other question is, how many employees are actually located in the Peabody place?
So in the Peabody place, I would probably say, give me 1 second, because we got some, maybe 70 or so, Councilwoman Johnson. We have some employees at our data center, and then we also have office down at City Hall.
Okay. That's what I need to know. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions, Councilwoman Johnson. Colleagues, anybody else have a question, comment, concern? Ms. Harris, I do, well, mine is more so a statement. I know it's been a work in progress trying to bring in some of the professional IT support in-house. I just wanted to say, I'm delighted to do that. Delighted that we've done that and we're making that transition, because it appears to me that we have an opportunity to fix some of our long-term costs. As you may have heard me comment before, if we know that we're going to have these expenditures, I think it's in our best interest to have a permanent fix, as opposed to looking at temporary fixes for that. I know something as competitive as this field is, it may present, a challenge for us to keep up with what the private sector may pay. But I think that once we can have someone or a group of individuals that here dedicated to doing their work, it could make all of our jobs, whether it's police, fire, parks, make the job that we all do in supporting those a little bit easier to do. So, thank you for your leadership and continuity in bringing this about and helping us improve in that area. So I don't have any other colleagues in the queue for this item. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, moved by moved by Warren, seconded by, couldn't get that voice. Ford. Okay, has been moved and seconded that we approve the IT budget for the fiscal year 2023. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is the opinion of the chair that the ayes have it on that item. That item has been approved. Thank you, Mrs. Harris and your team.
Thank you.
Colleagues, next we have engineering. So we are a little bit ahead of schedule. We can continue on this route if that is the will of the body. A little early.
Move on.
Move on. It's
Keep moving, brother.
I think that's the sentiment of us all. Ms. Boleyn, are you on the call? Let's see if we can let them know that we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but we would like him to see some.
Full advising.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Okay, I think
Good afternoon, sir.
I think we have been asked to do the presentation. If you could give me the ability to control this. Stand by.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can.
Excellent. Great.
The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, council members. Manny Belan.
Ms. Blaine, you there?
I'm here.
Okay, you went out for a second.
Can y'all
You can continue.
Sorry, we're having a little bit of technical difficulty here. Okay. I am here. Yeah. Can you still see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Try advancing the slide, Manny.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to continue on. So thank you for the opportunity to present the engineering division's operating budget. Just a head start here. So what we're presenting to you and requesting is our FY23 operating budget. It is roughly about 1.25% of the overall FY23 city of 20 million. Slide number 2 is our organizational chart.
It's not advancing.
Sure, y'all.
Ms. Belan, are you there?
I am here.
Okay.
But I am around, so I'm having a little bit of difficulty.
Okay.
So right now I'm on slide 2 under organizational chart. Do y'all see that?
All we can see is Martavius.
Yeah, we can't see.
You can't see my screen. Stand by.
Okay. Ms. Belan, we have Liza presenting, so I think she can follow along with you. We're on slide 3 now.
Okay, so we're on slide 3.
Stand by, let me give Mr. Blunt a call.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I understand. I'm not sure if I'm hearing echo or if I'm hearing. Yeah. Yeah.
Director Richard, we can hear you. So you can proceed.
I'm hearing echo on my no additional audio than my laptop audio.
Ms. Belan, what time is it over there in Hawaii?
Okay. I am in the office. I'm here in my office.
Oh, you're not in Hawaii?
Okay, I'm coming down right now.
Okay.
I'm coming down.
Councilman, we're gonna try, Director Blood's gonna come down and try it from my computer since I seem to have a good connection. He can run through it from there.
Okay, we're still ahead of time, so.
He'll be here in just about two seconds.
All right, no problem.
All right. Can you tell me? All this to tell them
So when he talks, you'll see, it'll show as Doug McGowan talking, but it's actually Manny and you'll recognize the difference
Okay.
on.
Okay.
You've been muted. To unmute yourself, press *6.
Go.
All right, my apologies on that. Always an issue with when you're getting ready to be a presenter. Okay. So again, Chairman, am I good to go?
Yes, sir, you are.
Thank you. All right, Manny Belen, Division of Engineering again. I appreciate the time. What we're presenting to you today is our 2023 operating budget request. As I mentioned earlier, this request represents roughly 1.25% of the overall city budget request of $750 million, based on the overview that Chief Ford presented. Next slide, please. Slide number 2 is our organizational chart. Nothing has changed from previous years on this. Just overall, we have 5 service centers, our land development and budget, our civil design, our transportation planning, traffic engineering, and our survey, construction, inspection. Next slide, please. Slide 3 kind of represents our strategic priorities that the division handles, mainly youth. You're probably asking, okay, why youth? We definitely support our school safety. So that's how we support youth. Second one is our neighborhoods. And obviously the next one is governments. Next slide, please. Probably slide 5, right? Slide 5 represents our expenditure bridge from FY22 to 23. Our personal services adopted budget in 22 was $8,779,484. What we're proposing for FY23 is $9,714,092. That represents approximately 10% increase from prior year. The next line is the materials and supplies. Our FY22, oops, go back, please. Thank you. Our next slide there is the materials and supplies. FY22 adopted was $5,146,908. Our ask for 22 or 23 is $4,916,795. That represents a decrease of roughly 4.5%. The next several lines are consistent, no increase or decrease. We do have an expense recovery increase for this year. Last year, it was roughly $4,185,300. In 23, there is an increase of roughly $1.25 million, totaling now to $5,435,300, and that represents roughly 29% increase from prior years. Next slide, please. Slide 7. Slide 7 represents our program comparative spending from prior year. Bottom line here is that from a total expenditure perspective, we do have a reduction for our ask in 23 of roughly $545,505. That decrease represents 5.5% decrease from prior year. Next slide, slide 8. Slide 8 illustrates or breaks down the reduction of the 545,505. Overall, we do have a full-time salary adjustment of $471,271 for our adjustments in salary and new hires. There is an increase of service level of $410,000. That represents basically 5 ISLs or 5 individuals to be added in our complement as part of a new initiative that the engineering division had initiated with MLGW street cuts. The remaining items, pension, healthcare, long-term benefits, adjustments, attrition, all those are provided by administration. Materials and supplies, we do have a slight reduction in our city shop charges of $25,000. Insurance, I guess, in this case, it was discussed in prior divisions that is now being transferred over to the risk management to maintain. Similarly, the same with claims and lawsuits. Those numbers were previously forecasted, and in this fiscal year, we're looking to move those back to the legal divisions. And then the expense recovery, as I noted in previous state aid, is a decrease of $1.25 million in expense recoveries. Next slide, slide 10. This bridges our revenues from 22 to 23. The 3 items that I would ask for you to focus on is our fiber optic franchise fee. We had an adopted budget of $592,000 roughly. And the proposed for 23, you see that there's a significant increase of roughly about $1.65 million to a total of $2,192,407. The reason behind that is that the whole drive towards smart city and 5G deployment, we did significantly see an increase in the amount of permitting and fees associated with that. And we will continue to see that probably in the next couple of years until such time as all the infrastructure to support that program are installed. The second item on here that I'd like for you to focus on is the subdivision plan inspection fee. There's a slight increase of that from $150 in 22 to $275,000 in 23, and that's about $125,000 increase. And again, that's based on just the amount of development that's being built out in the city, and that supports that. And then the final item is the street cut inspection fee. It was $100,000 in 22. We are proposing a $2.2 million proposal budget in 23. That's a 1.1 million increase. And again, as I previously mentioned in the other slides, that is in support of the new MLGW street cut. We have asked MLGW to front load most of their street cut effort so that instead of permitting on a monthly basis, we're actually get a real-time an accounting of all the street cuts that MLGW does. So that represents that number. Next slide, slide number 11, is our discussion year-to-year changes in revenues. As I previously mentioned, the fiber optic has an increase of $1.6 million roughly. Subdivision is $125,000. Street cut is $2.1 million. And most of these are based on our forecast of what we see these are intended to be in 23. So the total net change on that, including the referendum, is $9.9 million. Next slide, slide 14. This is the division's authorized complement. Currently, we have 11 positions that are currently vacant. However, since the printout, we've actually onboarded 3 positions. So we're actually 8 positions short. But most of those, if not majority of them, are already posted. And overall, that represents roughly 6.5% of the complement being vacant for the division. Next slide, slide 16, is our major M&S expenditures. 35% of the division's overall budget falls under our miscellaneous professional services. And mostly of that is our engineering consulting services that we'll go into details, I think, in the next sheet on how that breaks down for the engineering consulting services. So with that, go to the next slide, slide 17. The breakdown for our miscellaneous professional services shows you that we have roughly 6 vendors, consultants on board, 3 of which are certified EBO firms that we use for various projects that we endeavor on. There's one item on there, it's called the Urban Art Commission operating fees, and that's $150,000. That is for the program management of our urban art. Next slide, slide 19. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I'll just skip the leases because engineering doesn't have any facilities lease. And then the last slide, slide 19, is our MWBE overall. The division has a certified MBE spend of roughly 34.56%, with certified WBE spend of 12.45%. That's total certified MWU spend of 47.01%. And an additional non-certified MWBE of a 0.23%, which a total both certified and uncertified at 47.24%. I believe that concludes my presentation. I welcome any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you for that presentation, Mr. Boleyn. We have questions from Councilman Warren and Councilwoman Johnson. Councilman Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Boleyn, I saw that early on in the presentation you were saying that you're going to be paying less for supplies in one of those slides, and I'm just wondering why are you needing fewer supplies, or do you think the cost is going down?
I think you're referencing slide, I think slide number 5 for the materials and supplies with a reduction of roughly 4.5%. That right? Okay.
Yes, sir. I just was wondering what materials and supplies are cheaper now?
Yeah, so we actually had some carry forward from prior year, from FY22. And you see the encumbrance of $684,001.
Yes.
You see that? So that offsets the FY23 ask.
I'm just looking at the numbers. If the 22 budget was 5,800 and that's 4,900, I'm not seeing how that 7,000 or 700,000 still gives you those numbers, unless there's something else in there. It's like it is looking like you have fewer, you're expecting it's not going to cost as much.
Yeah. So both of those.
The basic math, 580 minus 684 is not going to be 449, $4,000,009.
So I would say it's a combination of just a material cost decrease and some of my operating, but also under the M&S, we do have the claims and the insurance as part of that. So that constitute that additional reduction.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Warren. Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you. My question, how you doing, Mr. Mann? Thank you for your presentation. On page 10, we talk about rental fees for $450,000. Explain that, please.
The rental fee?
Yeah.
That's actually part of our scooter. So our scooter revenues comes out of that. So we do charge for the scooters downtown to be on city streets, and that is part of our collection for revenue associated to that.
Okay. Then my next question is, how do we get the sales tax referendum money into this program, please?
I would defer that inquiry to either Chief Ford or Chief McGowan.
Thanks, Councilman. I'll answer that. So, as you know, there was an allocation of funding from this referendum for street maintenance and to help with some of the costs for street maintenance, and obviously traffic signalization, the striping that Mr. Belen does. That's a way for us to help, get those costs covered. It was one of the there was a very limited number of uses that we could have for that funding, and that was one of them. And so that helps us with Mr. Belen's budget.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Belen, I have a question on the same page. Traffic signal revenue, 165, 200,000. How do we collect revenues off of traffic signals? Are those the red light cameras or something?
No, sir. Those are actually, we provide services to our sister cities. So if there was, say, for example, a traffic signal that goes out in Collierville, for example, we support that effort, and then we invoice the respective sisters for that cost.
Okay.
And we are charging. Last year, actually, we reevaluated our costs for that, and we have increased that cost over time.
Okay. So I know that there was, it may not have been this past year, may have been the year before that, we went through and we reevaluated what some of our miscellaneous fees are. Would you say that we've done that for most of the fees that are on here? You clearly specified that the fiber optic franchise fee has gone up, and you also talked about the street cut inspection fee, but can we say that we've adequately reviewed these other different revenues?
Yeah, so if you recall, a couple of years ago, we've actually we did a fee study overall of our fee structures. 2 years ago, we implemented that fee structure. This body approved the increase of those fees, and we're set to actually revisit that. So we're going to be soon reevaluating our fee structure, and in the near future, be presenting something to this body for approval.
Okay, and so if I am reconciling the revenues of 11.5 and then the revenue is 11.5. So where is it's going to be spent? Is that under the major M&S expenditure?
So the expenditure part is actually on slide number 5 with the total expenditure of $9.355 million. And then on the revenue side, it's 9.939600.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, going back to page 5, then talk about a little bit expense recovery. So we are recovering expenses from whom?
So those are state aid,
Okay.
state aid funds that come in, and we do anticipate an increase of that of $1.25 million.
Okay. So, and that state aid is going to be spent on.
So most of those will be spent on pavement markings, intersection pavement markings. You know, it's some of our traffic signals that are not CIP related funds. But for example, if let's say a vehicle strikes one of our traffic signals, we'll have to make sure that those gets repaired fairly quickly from a liability perspective. And so those comes out of our operating budget. So that's where the material supplies comes from.
Okay. So looking at this budget, knowing that we have $5.4 million coming in expense recovery, largely from the state. And then we have an additional $6 million that's coming from the sales tax referendum. Is it safe to say that we will see about $11 million worth of street improvement miscellaneous, and I'm making a broad category, over this next fiscal year?
Yeah, so during the overview of the budget, there's actually ISLs that are part of that referendum funds. And I see Chief Ford shaking her head, and she could probably speak to that more. But that $6 million does account for those increases as well. So Chief Ford, did you want to add anything to that?
Request to be recognized, Chair.
Yes, you're recognized, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So the state street aid expense recovery that you see on here is there every year. This is part of every year as we receive our state street aid, which is required to be kept in a separate fund. At the end of the year, then we compare what we received in the state street aid fund to allowable expenditures. There are only certain types of things that are allowable to offset against the state street aid fund. The traffic engineering, street signs and marking, traffic signal maintenance, street maintenance, ground maintenance, those are the types of things that can be offset or recaptured. And so every year, I mean, we usually have, probably $15 million worth more in expenditures than we have in revenue that comes from state street aid. But the expense recovery you see here, that's standard every year in the budget for, for engineering and for public works. So that's a standard every year. So that doesn't really move much year to year, except you can see here we are expecting an increase, which is really interesting because the price of fuel is going up. And so we're expecting an increase on that. What the impact from the sales tax referendum fund is, we're looking at various projects through there that is giving some relief to the general fund, as I stated in my overview, that it's has allowed us some relief in the general fund. But that expense recovery is very normal and standard. That happens every year.
No, yeah, I get that part, but I guess when we are looking at providing additional services, or if citizens are seeing greater improvement over this next couple of years, it's a difference of if that level of improvement is going to be $5 million versus an additional $6 million that we have not tapped before. So, I just want to be prepared, should those who may be doing this and looking at the next year, hey, the city is doing a little bit more than they've done in the past, because there appears to be $6 million that wasn't available, that hadn't been tapped in previous years, to make some of these improvements when it comes to the Division of Engineering.
Yeah, I would say, Councilman, that in regard to the services that the Division of Engineering does provide, that $6 million will definitely increase our ability to be able to respond to those. I mean, one comes to mind, obviously, is our non-funded emergency speed humps, right? So those have not in the past been budgeted in the CIP. Those are something that we initiated last year, and some of these funds will be used towards the implementation or the procurement of those and installation of them. So that's just one of the many other initiatives that the division has taken on over time that has not fully been funded.
Okay. Well, no, I'm always in favor of taking on things and expending things where people can see the improvements that the city provides. And this sounds like this is one of those things. But if we use previous years and we haven't tapped that additional $6 million or had a $6 million infusion, that's what I'm questioning here, and I welcome it. Because we're talking about the expense recovery that we get from the state and then an additional $6 million. I think some of my colleagues have commended just the aesthetic value that the new traffic signals have. What I think would be helpful is that, okay, we're X amount, 10% of that $6 million or 600,000 is going for this, and just having some other type of plans of expending this part, because this is still going to be separate and is separate from your CIP request. But we see what is $6 million, almost half your total budget, and we just haven't had presented to us what that spending plan is. We're getting $6 million, but we hadn't adequately seen how slogan.
I apologize there, Chairman. You did freeze on us, so I missed the last few, I guess, sentences that you may have added on there. I apologize about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just saying, I'm always pleased when we have additional funds coming in where people can see the improvements. And some of my colleagues talked about the new traffic signals. So we just haven't seen a plan that we have $6 million more that we haven't tapped before. What we haven't seen is what the intended expenditures are for those and some of the improvements that people could see.
Noted, sir. I would just bring the topic that during the CIP we did introduce, or at least Chief mentioned of our traffic signal, where we're introducing roughly about 28 intersections where we're going to do traffic signal modernization, and so that's going to be part of that effort, the entire effort for that.
Right, but that's separate money though, is it not?
Yes, sir, absolutely. Yeah. But we do have. I mean, you will see a drastic improvement in our traffic signal modernization effort 23 as part of this.
Okay, Councilwoman Logan.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Director Boleen. I'm not sure if you explained it, but if you would, could you revisit page 10? I was wondering what the increase in the fiber optic franchise fee and the street cut inspection fee, the increase in the revenues, what are we expecting in those two areas?
Yes, ma'am. So on the fiber optic franchise fee, so this is our forecast of what potential revenue that could come in. This is based on the trends that we're seeing. Last year we budgeted $592,000, but as of this quarter we were over $1.5 million. And so what we're projecting, and we know that there's still a lot more work of fiber installs to be done in our right-of-way. And so from our forecast perspective, we are asking for an increase of $1.65 million with a projected 23 proposed budget of roughly $2.2 million. So again, that's for allowing various telecoms to install fiber in our right-of-way. So that supports not only the 5G, but just overall smart cities.
Okay, that's what I was wondering if it was related to 5G. Do we have a plan for that, and in terms of increase in service or increase in installation? And if so, is it by districts or any hot spots or dead spots? I know there's also money allocated or being allocated federally. And is this related to that, or how are we deploying the funds as it relates to the 5G and fiber optics installation and that type of thing? And then in the next one, street cut inspection fee, what is that one connected to?
Sure. To answer the first question, the effort for here is separate from the effort that is being administered through housing and community development and the smart cities effort that we're doing. That's totally separate, and the funding for that is separate. This is various companies like Verizon's and AT&T's that want to install fiber within our right-of-way. What the usage for that is really for their customers, and majority of the fees associated with this is to allow them to install fiber in our right-of-way. So hopefully that answers that question. And then regarding the street cut fee, last council meeting, MOGW went in front of the body and requested some funding to be approved. That is part of this effort is we're trying to front cost MOGW's street cuts effort. And so the idea here is they do roughly about 5,000 cuts on an annual basis. And what we're trying to do is capture that cost in the front end. So the $2 million, the $2.1 million that we're asking for is basically a revenue from MOGW for those street cuts. So instead of doing a monthly invoicing to them, we've asked them to do basically a force account that gives us the $2.1 million up front, and then we deduct from that amount all the street cuts that MOGW does. The goal there is not necessarily to create revenue, but rather to have a better coordination with MOGW so that when we do resurface the street, that all of the work is done up front and the integrity of that surface remains for the life of that asphalt. So they don't cut it in the first year or second year or third year. So that is the effort here, and not necessarily the revenue itself, but rather the coordination to prohibit the cuts to our newly resurfaced streets.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. Now I want to make sure I understand on the first question. Do we have, and I'm asking because I want to understand, so when constituents ask me or when we have things throughout the year to vote on, I'll have a better understanding. So on the first one, when we have different cell tower people come to us, for approval, or when there's a need for a tower or something in an area, is there an overall plan for the entire city that shows where there's weak installation, or there's a need for increased broadband or something like that, and it's related to the fiber optics installation or lack of, or that cost is there? Is there a plan that we're going by, whether it's Verizon asking for certain access or it's us determining that we need access as a city? Is there, a plan we could look at and say, okay, well, hey, we're determining where it needs to go as opposed to someone else? And I hope you understand my question, because sometimes they'll come and they'll ask for access, and if they're going to put in the fiber optics or do that, then is that based on a plan of where we know it's needed? I hope I'm asking a question in a manner you can answer it.
Yeah, I believe, Councilwoman, I do understand the question. I believe I do anyway. So the first question regarding cell towers. The placement of cell towers is based on the vendor themselves. So they have their network and how they want to deploy and create a grid, basically, of their network. So that, in regards to the request for the tower, that we don't have any idea of where each of those vendors desires to place those. The second part of your question regarding what are we doing? So we do have an effort internally, as I mentioned earlier, HCD and DPD and IT actually and us have been involved and submitted, or at least is in the books right now for an RFQ for our deployment of broadband. So there is an RFP out there for vendors to submit their proposal to help expand our ability to broadband. So that's a separate question to the previous question you had about cell towers. So that work is currently being pursued at this point.
Okay, I just wanted to make certain, thank you for that. I want to make certain that we were putting fiber optics in places that were most needed based on an overall plan and objective in saturating the whole city. So thank you for that information. I'll get back, and if I have any other subsequent questions from that, I will forward you directly.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councilwoman Johnson, you recognize.
Thank you. I just had one question from Councilwoman Logan's discussion on this fiber optic franchise fees. Are we sure we're getting enough money? I mean, how do we determine how much to charge people?
Yeah, that was part of a previous study that was conducted relative to the usage of right-of-ways. So those per linear foot, per size of conduits, all of those were previously calculated, and that's what we are using in terms of a per linear cost to charge for fiber within our right-of-way. So we're not only talking about the length of the fiber itself, but the size of the conduit in which those are placed in.
How old are those reports that you have reference to?
I would defer to Chief McGowan here on that.
Thanks, Councilwoman. So this process has been going on for some time. Attorney Wade can also help weigh in. This was something that we undertook starting back probably more than 6 years ago. It took a little bit of a pause. Nashville went through the same thing. It's all based on the fact that any fees that we charge for our right-of-way cannot be what is, quote, determined to be arbitrary and capricious. In other words, our fees have to be based on just what we recover for our costs.
Okay.
So we just completed that, I want to say in 2018 or 19. It was a long process, and we just got it completed. And we have just now, you all passed, I believe, last year, legislation that put into place the new fee schedule that we're able to begin collecting. So it should be, and I heard you all talking about that, we look at every resource that comes to the general fund, and we don't just have Manny's cost recovery funding his work. It goes to the overall cost of everything we do in the city. So it's relatively recent. It was a hard-fought battle to get where we are, but we can stand behind the fees because they are defensible.
So basically, you charge them just what it costs to install it.
Well, what our overall costs are to maintain the right-of-ways, the diminution of value, and what our costs are to carry somebody else's infrastructure in our right-of-way. We are authorized to collect that cost, and that's everything from the chief financial officer's ability to process the payments, to the legal officer's requirement to defend us in court, to Manny's costs for the engineering to Robert Connect's costs for maintaining the right-of-way and repairing it when they do those kinds of installations. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. That makes sense. I understand the process now. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I cannot hear you, Chair.
I don't see anybody else. Thank you, Councilwoman Jones. I don't see anyone else who has indicated they have a question or a comment for Mr. Boleyn. So not seeing anybody else, I'll entertain a motion to approve this.
Move it forward, move it.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved by Ford, seconded by Warren. All those in favor of approving the Division of Engineering's budget for fiscal year 2023, please signify by saying aye.
Okay.
Okay, any opposed? If seeing none, it is the opinion of the chair that the ayes have it for that. Thank you, Mr. Boleyn. Have a good evening, sir.
Thank y'all.
Colleagues, we have two more on the agenda. We are scheduled for a break at this exact time, so we are cooking with gas, as my grandmother used to say. But libraries and city court judges, those typically aren't ones that we have extended discussion. So if whatever the will of the body is, we can continue through.
Keep it going. Keep on going.
Okay.
And we'll be through.
All right. So, Director McCloy, if you are ready to present, we can turn it over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Y'all are really efficient today. So the libraries are, the Memphis Public Libraries are extremely amazing. We serve the most underserved people in town. We're always most concerned about North and South Memphis and the people who have the least access to transportation and resources. So outreach is a huge emphasis of ours. We have 3 mobile vehicles that go to where people are that are outside of our 4 walls, building skills and connecting them with resources they might never have had, checking out hotspots. So they do a whole lot of programming. They do art classes. They're really trying to connect with all individuals so that they are not left behind, because not everybody has the luxury of having a car or even access to get to the library, even if they're walking. So the Start Here vans have been really successful. You can hear people playing music, you can hear them teaching you lessons, you could be focusing on STEAM activities. They do a little bit of everything you might be able to imagine, but not at the library generally. So it's really important to us that we get outside of our 4 walls, because that's where the real action is. So we have, one of the things that the Connect crew does also is really replicate all the STEAM activities and the art projects, so that and music projects, so that you can actually go out and make sure that these resources and the wisdom that these individuals have, is transferable to any location. So it's very intentionally designed for us to get as much mileage as we possibly can out of these experts, and just share the knowledge, because it's exciting to witness, and it's just a really huge part of our resources, and it's a part of our equity, diversity, and inclusion practices, and we just want people to have 100% access to the extent it's possible, and getting on 4 wheels has been pretty successful for us. So we're really pleased about that. We are really focused also on literacy. We are very intentional about trying to move the needle on literacy here in Memphis and Shelby County. We are partnering with a number, not just the school system, but a number of many schools. So that has been really popular as well. And we're really asking our staff and being trained on making sure that everyone has the opportunity that many of us did have to get more literate and to be inspired for the love of reading and just the curiosity that comes with that. So everything with us, as I think y'all know, is about partnerships. We don't do anything as a silo. All of our staff work in teams. You can always get more out of something if it's based on multiple inputs. And so we're pleased about that. CASET is rolling out a lot of STEAM and other activities as well, and it should be opening soon. And we're delighted about that. But in the meantime, our staff is going to the branches using the mobile service vehicles, and just making sure that all these things are transferable, and that anyone can walk into the CASET, and then they can walk out of there, and then make sure that the partnerships make it grow. So we are right now, and I know that I sort of didn't start with my budget comments, but we are ramping up for the summer program called Explore Memphis. We'll have well more than 100 programs. We'll have free camps. So right now we're just really getting excited and busy with these activities for the summer. And everything is free. We'll even have a 4-week partnership with Code Crew, who is going to do the training in cooperation with our staff. So we're thrilled about that. And 4 weeks is a long, free thing. The presentation slides are not up.
Yeah, it's not up yet. I thought you were just waiting for us to do it.
Well, we had it up a second ago. I wanted to be prepared.
Here it is now.
Anyway, I apologize about that. So we have a program called Discover Read, and those are 0 to 5, early childhood literacy programs that are intended to, again, engage adults or caregivers with children so that they can be inspired. Can you see that?
Yes. Well,
okay,
we can see the first page.
What's that?
We can see the first page.
Okay. All right. So sorry about that. So anyway, traditionally we've served a good 2 million people, and this year it's looking closer than it's looking more like 800,000 in-person visits. We, because of the pandemic, they kind of lagged, but now people are really coming back in spades. So we're really excited that our customers and the curious are returning to Memphis Public Libraries. We have Cloud 901. I know y'all are aware of that. It's award-winning, and we've produced over 100 movies in Cloud 901, and continue to win awards from the Indie Memphis group. And so we're really thrilled about that. They have a recording studio, as y'all know. They have arts, messy arts, and maker spaces, and everything else in there. And it's being replicated, and we've heard from people across not just the United States, but across many countries, actually. And we have some people coming to visit us soon who just want to see how they could replicate what we have. And for us, replicability is really important. One of the things that we did when we had the Stay at Home, Safer at Home initiative was to go virtual. And so we're very excited that everything has been able to be translatable to virtual as well as in person. A lot of people are not still comfortable coming in person, but a lot of people are getting much more comfortable with coming in person. But we have a really good set of instructional videos that any person can download from our website. And people are really excited about that. And it's really brought customers back to the libraries. One of the things we did when we wanted to kind of connect with people was get more people to have library cards. We made it really easy. They can get a library card just online by going to memphislibrary.org, and they have access to ebooks, and the electronic resources are really popular. That's one of the things that has gotten so many people to actually come back in person because they're so excited by the information that's shared there and how simple the process is. And so sorry. So anyway, so it has actually brought in a lot of customers. So electronic resources are a bit more expensive than a paper book, but you know the positive feedback and the re-inspired people who have come to Memphis Public Libraries have really just taken off with the virtual resources, whether that's programming or that's downloading books that you can actually do from your own home. So the program comparative spending, let's see, the first page, page number 7. I passed it, sorry. Okay, yes. Okay, so sorry, FY22 expenditures, bridge to FY23 request. Personnel, the adopted budget for personnel is $16,684,450. And that was the adopted budget. And this year we are proposing $17,592,251. And there's a little bit more detail on that in a couple of slides. So M&S is $4,685,967, and we are proposing $4,619,710 for M&S. Capital outlay, we don't have a budget for that, and so service charges are generally associated. We've eliminated fines, but if people do lose a book, they do have to pay for the replacement of it. And so one of the things a lot of people do, and then also people like to use their credit cards sometimes, and those, to get either copier prints or replacement of the lost book. So that's sort of the foundation of that. So on transfer out, that's actually the library pension plan. Pension participants are not part of the city's pension plan. It's actually a separate retirement structure. So this is the annual amount to transfer out from the library, because we do have city employees who are eligible for the pension. So in this case, we're proposing $1,691,484 for that. So the final proposed budget for FY23 is $23,915,945. So on the program comparative spending, you can see that the total expenditures when the adopted budget were $22,919,401. We have a roll forward balance, and that reflects some encumbrances. And our request for this year is $23,915,945. So you'll see, I think on the next page, the increase, or what the increase is reflective of. So, and sorry, and you see that that's on page 7, that is $996,544. So this slide actually shows the items that are driving that $996,544. Salaries and potential raises are $777,499. We do have one position we have proposed to increase our service level with, and that is for an editor, graphics, and producer for WYPL, our radio and TV station. And it's just one position. But this is one of the things we certainly learned in the pandemic is, one, people love WYPL. It's very popular, and we really need to grow the amount of programming, not just for the Memphis Public Libraries, but for our community. So that's one additional position that we're requesting. So the healthcare choice plan is actually a reduction in expenditures. That's $18,288. And so that's a little bit less expensive than we had expected. On the Healthcare Select, that is $56,172. And on the pension and the pension designated contribution is $21,586. So city shop charges are $22,894. We budgeted that amount. Partly we've had some vandalism, we'll say, and so we have had some vehicles that have required a little bit more repair than usual, and so that's why we worked with General Services to fund at that level. For fuel, we have just $5,361. And claims, we have $5,000 in our budget. And then lastly, as it relates to insurance, we actually had funded that through the library, but because the city attorney's office is taking responsibility for risk management and insurance, this reflects basically not a refund, but a reduction in our overall expenses. So we originally, I think y'all know that the library was authorized to eliminate fines, and we just talked about that a little bit. But because of the public copiers, we actually approved, or y'all approved, $120,000, and we just exceeded that. So we're confident we will exceed this expectation, but we're only $1,000, so you can't take it all to the bank right there. But anyway, so we're excited that we are building, more revenue generators as well that are not punitive. On the local shared revenue, that $555,000, as I think y'all are aware, the East Shelby branch is owned by Shelby County, and they contract with us to provide library services to the unincorporated areas of Shelby County. So that's $555,000, and they reimburse us 100% of what we actually spend. Then there's the city of Bartlett. The city of Bartlett has a budget. It was this year $1,034,000, but next year it's going to be $1,050,000. The $16,000 difference, it's not a huge increase, but reflects salaries that Bartlett will provide. I mean, they'll provide 100% reimbursement for that. So, yeah, the only change here is $16,000 increase in payment that they will reimburse us for. So to page 14, you can see our authorized complement. The first thing that you'll see, it's 287 current employees are authorized for our complement. And for this year, that one person or that one position that we wanted to increase or want to increase for WYPL is the difference between the 287 and 288. That's just the one additional position that we have requested. So utilities, if you go to page 16, thanks. We're budgeting $1,305,792. And so that we think will be a satisfactory amount, hopefully. On security, we actually have budgeted $885,000. And we did actually put out a request for bids for renewal, or not for renewal, but for response. And so we'll see how that comes back. But with library books, we have $790,501 for this year. We've got for janitorial services a budget of $700,010. For facilities and structural repair outside, that's $242,043. Supplies outside, we have $200,000. And professional services, we have $120,000. And then all other M&S is $376,101. So on professional services, one of our largest amount, well, the largest amount is for Cengage and Track Systems with IT, or information technology, $71,660. We also fund armored car services by Loomis for $30,000 annually. We have various vendors who provide youth programming, and that's great. We do work with Human Resources to interfund bill or be interfund billed for ID badges and the fitness center. Lily Bee's Catering is a caterer, and you can see that we don't spend very much money on catering, but we do that once or twice a year to celebrate either volunteers or retirees. And then lastly, Corporate Video LLC is a way of backing up the information for WYPL's broadcast. We don't have any leases, and so the last slide that we have to share actually is about MWBEs, so the Minority Women Business Enterprise Utilization. Our current spend is 90.38%. So we work really hard to do the right thing, and just are really pleased about that. So the total certified and non-certified MWBE spend is right there for y'all. So that is as of June 30th, 2021. So anyway, so we did have the certified MBE spend is $718,617.97. We have the certified WBE is $764,018.91. And then total certified MWBE is $1,482,636.88. And non-certified MWBE spend is $859,029.42. And total certified and non-certified are $2,341,666.30. So we're definitely trying to be a big partner in doing what the right thing is for Memphians of all ages and persuasions. So really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this, and y'all might have some questions.
Yes, thank you for that, Director McClure. We have questions from Councilwoman Logan.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Director McClure. I appreciate all of your efforts all the time. Always very sensitive and to the needs of the communities, and we appreciate that. My question is, it may not be the right setting, but I do want to know, I don't know if on your expenditures in materials and supplies or wherever, is it listed, say for the new town center, there are a lot of windows, and so in terms of cleaning services for the windows, I know they take care of that. Where is that included in this budget, and has that been a discussion?
Well, this is something, you're talking about Raleigh, correct?
Yeah.
So it is an awkward, it's beautiful, but it is an awkward maintenance kind of thing, to your point, because we don't have equipment. We have to bring in professionals to do that. So we've only had it cleaned, I think, one time, but I'm very sensitive to the fact that, it's going to be probably the highest maintenance part of that building.
So is that included anywhere in this report or presentation or line item?
I can get you the figures. I did not bring those today, but I'd be happy to circle back with you all, just because I think it is important. We want all of our branches to be as low maintenance or as highly maintained as we possibly can. So, it looks great right now, and I think we've only had it cleaned once, but I will circle back with you for sure.
Okay, I appreciate that. I appreciate having the information, but I want to make certain that is included in here so that I'll know that it's going to be cleaned this year on a regular schedule, as well as the repair of the fountain.
Yes, well, yeah, I was going to say,
it is fairly a new building.
Yes.
And we want to make certain that we at least have a year or two, actually we wanted to work all the time. And I'm very appreciative. Everyone loves it. It's a great asset to the community. But we want these small, details of keep continuing to keep it in a pristine way, and it's going to be what's needed.
Absolutely. We're not going to disappoint you on that. Don't worry. But I think right now the facilities structural repair outside, those are people we contract with, and that's where the funding will come from.
You said where's it going to come from?
It's facilities and structures repair.
Is that a part of the city?
Yeah, well, it's the library. It's actually part of the library.
Oh, but so you're saying it is in this budget?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, I don't recall how much it cost. I know it's not free, we'll say, but it's really important that we maintain the integrity and the beauty and the character of that space. So yes, we will definitely continue to follow through on that. But yes, that's where we'll fund it.
Once we approve this budget, we should see those fountains working again, right? Okay, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate all you do. Thank you.
All right. I appreciate you, and thanks for your support.
Always.
Thanks, Councilman Logan. We have Councilman Warren in queue.
Mr. Chair, if there's no one else in the queue, I'd like to motion to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second, Ford.
Okay, has been moved by Warren, seconded by Ford, that we approve the budget for fiscal year 23 for library services. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Colleagues, our last items for today is the Judicial City Courts. Ooh, we're way ahead.
This is Tristan Gately Sweat. I'm the division analyst for the City Judges Division. I've reached out to Judge Sugarman. I don't believe he's on the call currently, but just to let him know that we were a little ahead of schedule.
Okay. Yeah, if you would, please, and just let us know how we respond.
Mr. Chair, while we're waiting, could we get like a brief explanation about this department, maybe from someone who's on?
Councilman Jones, you're muted.
Thank you. Mr. Galen, are you able to do that?
I'm sorry, sir. I missed that. I was trying to give him a call on Teams, but he did not answer.
What we'd ask for is a brief explanation of your department and what you do.
Yes, sir. I'm with the budget office, actually. I work within the finance division. I'm just the assigned analyst for the city judges division.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Warren, this is just the city judges. So as you know, we have 3 divisions there. This is their budget request. It looks like they have a budget request that's about $16,000 more than what it was last year. As I'm flipping through it, this is a self-sufficient. We know it doesn't have the traffic fines and issues that come before the city court's office with those 3 divisions. So I would be inclined if, we are ahead of schedule in the fact that this budget is just $16,000 more than it was last year. I'd be inclined to entertain a motion on this item.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay. Colleagues, a motion has been made and seconded that we approve the Judicial City Court's operating budget for fiscal year 23. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that item has been approved. Colleagues, that's the last on our agenda today. We have police matter and solid waste on tomorrow. So I would imagine that those will be a little bit more broadly discussed than these today. But you should have some updated scheduling in your inboxes. So I would ask you to review those as far as a new updated schedule. Is there any other business that needs to come before any housekeeping items that need to be discussed, colleagues, administration?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, seeing none, there has been a motion made to adjourn this meeting, and I declare this meeting adjourned.